Guys. So this week is a little bit different because what I decided to do is I'm not actually giving you a discussion for tonight, which you probably realized. You'll also be getting an email from me about me posting this video in your exam and the fact that you don't have the discussion. But I decided instead of having you do the discussion, I'm going to give you guys that time to look over the video and start preparing for the exam. It's also a little bit different because we have spring break. So I am actually going to leave your test open for all of spring break so that if you want to do it over spring break, that's totally fine. Just be aware that normally I give you guys an extra week where you can turn it in late. And since you have that extra time, I won't do that. So the Sunday of spring break, the 17th, it's got to be in. There's not going to be any way you can do it late for late credit. So it does open up tomorrow morning. So if you do it this weekend, don't have to worry about it. The other nice thing about this exam is it's only 3 chapters instead of 4. So I think you only have 22 questions on the exam. It's very similarly formatted. You're going to start in chapter 9. The matching is going to be a little bit different, only in the aspect that you're going to have a chapter 9 matching for vocab, but then you're also going to have a matching just on the female anatomy and a matching just on the male anatomy. I wanted to separate those out a little bit. So you'll have your normal vocab, and then you'll have, like I said, one matching question on the female anatomy, one matching question on the male anatomy, and then you'll go to your chapter 10 vocab matching, and then to your chapter 11 vocab matching. So again, that's a big chunk of the first part of your test. It's about 50 out of your 150 points is just those vocab. So as I always tell you guys, you should be either taking the time to write those out or getting into, the glossary and taking pictures, or however it is that you can have all those vocab words in front of you. There are a lot in these 3 chapters. So it's going to be hard if you're trying to go back and forth between the online book and the test to, even though you have less questions and you still have your 2.5 hours, it's still going to be very difficult if you don't prepare ahead of time, especially with the vocab. Have it in front of you. Write it out. I told you guys before, that's what we used to have to do old school. You had to write out all your vocab, put it on note cards, put it on a piece of paper. Like I said, if you have pages in your book where there's multiple vocab, you could take pictures of that and have that available to you. There are just some options to make it much easier on yourself. So make sure you prepare yourself accordingly. That's a good chunk of your test. But you don't want it to take all of your time. It should be something that's actually pretty quick. Okay. In regards to after all the matching questions, here's kind of what some of the stuff you're going to need to know. Pretty much everything you're looking at in these three chapters revolves around sex, reproduction, STIs. Okay. So in chapter 9, you're talking specifically just about sexual health. There are, in the beginning, it kind of talks about how there are some dimensions and how different aspects of our life can affect our sexual health. And it kind of gives us, there's 6 components, like physical, emotional, social, etc. Aspects of our lives that can enhance or not help our sexual health. So be aware of those kind of components. Like I said, there's 6 of them: physical, emotional, social, intellectual, spiritual, and environmental. But make sure you go in and look at those so you know what those mean in regards to how does it relate to our sexual health. Okay. And then you have, like I said, a lot of your anatomy, which all of that is going to be taken care of in your vocab. That's a big part of that section. Okay, the next thing that you're going to want to be able to talk about is circumcision, and give some of the reasons that we say that circumcision is more beneficial than it is, then you have to worry about the risk. Obviously, there are risks involved, but we've decided that the benefits definitely outweigh the risks. And so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kind of like statistics or concepts that our book tells us this is why we we choose to do circumcision even though there is a little bit of risk involved. So be aware of that. Let's see. Let's see. I'm gonna make sure I'm not missing any. Okay, one of the next things I have you guys talk about, again, specifically because it's related to college and the college campus, is what's really going on with sex on college campuses. Your book actually gives a really good chart, and it talks about what the statistics really are on campus with oral sex and anal sex and intercourse, and how many partners people have been with, and it just kind of goes into what's the reality and what's really happening. So I want you to know some of those statistics and be aware of that. Also in that same area, it gives you strategies for prevention, because we say in college now, and pretty much in general, we've kind of created this hookup atmosphere. And so how do you try to prevent, having some of these issues with this and that, being in that environment? And so it gives you 5 kind of strategies for prevention. So make sure you know those. Let's see. I want you to know some of the statistics about sex in America and what's going on. So be aware of some of those. You have to know your orientation, so homosexual, heterosexual, bisexual, asexual, and know what that coordinates to. What else? A lot of vocab in here, so a lot of what you guys are doing is vocab. You are going to have to discuss what are some of the things that we found that have a direct correlation with erectile dysfunction in males. So in the book, it gives, again, 5 things that we found in a study. It was Harvard's Health Professionals Follow-Up Study that showed a high correlation with erectile dysfunction. So knowing what those things are. And then I am going to have you discuss sexual deviations. So things like fetishism, exhibitionism, voyeurism, sadism, masochism, and just kind of know what some of those are. Basically what that means is those are people that deviate from what we consider the norm in regards to sexual arousal and sexual relationships. So something like fetishism is where they kind of hone in on an object or a piece of clothing or something like that. Like a lot of times you'll hear people say they have foot fetishes, which would mean they would get sexually aroused by certain types of feet. And so know a little bit about that. And that's pretty much everything in that chapter. Going into the second chapter, you're going to have not as many questions, but a couple kind of big questions. So one of the things you're going to have to do is there's a chart that has a whole bunch of different kinds of birth control. And basically you're going to have to pick out some of those and be able to give all the categories that the chart gives. So the chart says, what is the method? Do you have to go to the doctor? How do you use that method? What are some risks? And then what are some benefits outside of the fact that it's just birth control? And so you need to be able to give all 5 of those categories for multiple of those types of birth control. My suggestion would be to look at the ones that either you already use or that you're considering using, just so that it's more beneficial to you in the long run. And that's going to be a big question. I think that one's actually worth like 16 points because you have to do a couple of the birth controls and you have to do all the categories. So, something else you're going to need to do is tell me about birth control in America. It actually gives some statistics. It gives you about 4 bullet points, being able to talk about what is actually happening in America in regards to birth control. So know a little bit about that. Goes through all the different birth control. So like I said, that's all kind of in your chart. Be able to talk a little bit about abortion. Another big major thing you're going to actually have to be pretty specific about is it lists some key components to prenatal care. I want to say it gives you 4 major categories. Okay, so you're going to have to address all 4 of those categories in regards to what are we trying to do prenatally to make sure that the baby stays safe. You're going to have to discuss at least one complication of pregnancy, so it gives you a couple different options there. But knowing what's one of the major things that can go wrong in a pregnancy. And I think that's pretty much it in that section. Just go back through and make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it in that chapter. Okay, and then in your last chapter, again, you're going to have to give, there's a chart that gives you all your STIs. You're going to have to, I'm going to actually tell you some specific ones. So you're going to have to be able to give me both columns of that chart. You're going to have to be able to give me the transmission, and you're going to have to be able to give me the signs and symptoms. Also in that same section, it gives you risk factors for sexually transmitted infections. And you're going to have to know quite a few of those. I think they give you like 9. I don't make you know every single one, but know what some of those risk factors are. Know what the ABCs of safer sex are. You're going to have to look at the HPV vaccination. What are some pros and some cons of the HPV vaccination? I might have you talk a little bit about STIs specifically in college again. But again, that HPV vaccine, should you get it, should you not get it? What are some of the pros and cons? In regards to, I think I might have said STIs in general, but really it's more specifically HIV and AIDS. So if you get to that part in the exam, it's really in the HIV and AIDS section. It actually indicates more who is at risk. And so it talks about there's categories that I want you to make sure you address: gay and bisexual men, Black Americans, women, and then young adults. And that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, let me know. You guys did better last time. I could tell preparing yourselves. Hopefully this time will be even better now that you've done it a couple of times. Again, the big key components is make sure you have that vocab available. Make sure that you address all the sections that I told you. Take some notes or have that in front of you. And again, since it's only 3 chapters and I think it's 22 questions, hopefully time won't be an issue for anybody, especially if you prepare yourself accordingly. And then, like I said, you have all the way to the end of spring break to actually get it done. So good luck.